Well, hello, everybody. Welcome to the Film of a Podcast starring me. We're going to get into a lot of stuff today, some movie reviews, some movie news, possibly that Justin Baldoni, Blake Lively, whole defamation lawsuits. It's just so tiring to get into. The people that cover it every day, I feel as sorry for them as I do for the people who have to cover like politics. It would just wear me out. Thanks for tuning in. And let's get into the opening rant. Another movie has made me want to watch an older movie. The new Will Ferrell, Reese Witherspoon movie is about as good as a very okay fast food value meal. You might eat a few of the fries and you might have a bite of the burger, but then you'll understand that it's stale and the material is stale. And what are these two stars doing in this kind of movie? It's not good, and it's made me go back into the old vault of movies that did it better. And so instead of watching You're Cordially Invited on Amazon Prime, where you could be binging Reacher, which comes back on February 20th, Alan Richman, quirky one-liners, cool, badass females, not complex mysteries to solve. Dominic Lombardozzi showing up as a cool cop, or Will Ferrell getting to be kind of raunchy for 45 minutes, and then the whole movie just kind of decided to be from the heart. That from the heart, meaningful, boring bullshit. As the thing is, every podcast is brought to you by the greatness of coffee. I don't know what I'd do without it. It fuels plenty of movie watching. And the movie that I did watch after watching how bad this one was The Wedding Planner. Yes, that's a movie that I will put on. Thanks to my wife, who loved that movie a lot. Matthew McConaughey, Jennifer Lopez. Maybe you mix in Father of the Bride. Maybe you mix in some other, crap. But that's kind of what You're Cordially Invited is. So the opening rant is to tell you to not go watch that new movie. Watch anything else with those two actors and you'll be just fine. But let's just get into this whole Justin Baldoni and Blake Lively. It ends with us, because it didn't end with us. It's been going on for over a year now. Let's just cover it. Baldoni directed Blake Lively in It Ends With Us, adapted from a very popular novel that was read, and the movie was just hyped up. It was kind of like it was paired with her husband Ryan Reynolds' Deadpool and Wolverine as this big kind of big two release. They weren't like paired by the studios, but it was kind of like one of those things where you have two big movies, you have a power couple that's kind of coming on in Hollywood, destroying everything in its path. I mean, taking shots, filing lawsuits. So right away when the movie came out last year, the movie scored a 55 on Rotten Tomatoes. That's like kind of saying it's a little bit better than average. It's on Netflix. I was with my family 2 weeks ago, and 3 out of 4 people in the room wanted to watch it. I was the fourth one who did not want to watch it. They're like, well, it looks good. I'm like, it's just got so much noise around it. And that's going to play into our discussion of it. The aftermath. I'm sure there's fault in both parties. As the case is with most of these kind of cases involving rich people who act or anything public, there's going to be fault in both parties. Amber Heard and Johnny Depp. Yeah, he's a fucking crazy dude, but she's also a chaotic bitch. And so that you put those two things together in a glass and you mix it up with some spices, and it's going to be fiery for, Netflix docuseries and discussions and hit pieces and everything else. So that movie came out last year, and right away it was like, a little chaos on the set, directions, what Lively wanted to do with the novel, because it was based on a very popular and read novel. I mean, that's kind of what you heard about. Oh, Blake Lively's doing the movie, and the trailer was kind of good, and it dealt with, relationship abuse, abuse of the mental and the physical and the verbal kind. And that was kind of like the trademark of the whole production and the whole thing and making it a movie. And Baldoni was not only the director, he was the co-star. And so he was going to be involved in all that, and all that very highly, controversial. Because if you step into that kind of territory right now, you better be able to make it right. And when you step into a production with somebody like Blake Lively, who's not just an actress anymore, who was on Gossip Girl, she is now somebody who's got, and we'll get to that in a minute, the results, the box office results of It Ends With Us. She's not just, she's a legit, actress and also a movie star, kind of like her husband. They have some clout. So when you put them together, and yes, Ryan Reynolds was kind of brought into this either directly through Blake, through his own interests, because being a producer and how she wanted to make changes to the novel, and Baldoni probably didn't really like that, and they clashed, and there was a rooftop scene that they had filmed, and it kind of caused some drama from maybe abuse on his end. He may have just gone off on her. There was body image shots apparently reportedly thrown from his side. And then so the whole thing is, the movie came out, it made $351 million. So it didn't score the greatest with critics, but in the land of movie making, the biggest, most important factor is what did the audience think? Did it make money? The studios and the financiers and all those other people, they don't run on good reviews. They help because they'll carry audiences to a movie, especially the ones who didn't really want to see it. And a lot of the drama around the movie helped its release because people just wanted to see it, and it still is. It's on streaming apps right now, platforms, and it can be watched. But it made a lot of money, but the drama didn't go away. By the end of last year, Blake Lively filed a lawsuit. It was sexual harassment claims, and just, right against Justin Baldoni. He kind of turned around and filed one of his own against, or not only her, but also the New York Times. There's a $400 million lawsuit that he put up against Blake Lively and her team, which kind of lumps Ryan Reynolds into that, because he felt pressured by not only Blake Lively to make changes to scenes in the movie, felt pressure from her and Ryan Reynolds and even Taylor Swift. Again, Blake Lively, if you weren't paying attention in those Chiefs games, she was also in she was in the suite there with the Kelseys and the Swifts, and even, I don't think Reynolds ever showed up. Maybe he did, but Lively was in the box. So she's buddies, and she apparently used that kind of clout. And so you have that. And then, so they both traded lawsuits. He filed one against the New York Times because they did a podcast. So it was like a hit piece. And then the New York Times podcast had the author that writes for the New York Times on their podcast to basically go, yes, I wrote this piece. He's terrible. She's great. Blah, blah, blah. They patted themselves on the back. So he's got two lawsuits against Blake Lively and also against the New York Times. And you read up on this stuff, and you just come down to, there's a 6-minute voice chat that he left her after that rooftop scene where apparently he was like, I'm sorry, I didn't get there. I didn't do it right. I want to make the right movie for the right reasons. Blah, 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 blah. And then there's also just a lot of stuff that he has from his end going to her team that she's just kind of, there's outside of the voice chat, there's not a lot of evidence that, he did anything wrong, and that his team is just like, their team used the clout of her husband and Taylor Swift to make changes to the movie that he was trying to make. And it got so bad that Baldoni and his family they kind of left the country on a vacation, because in this day and age, that kind of stuff's going to find your whole family. The kids are going to hear about it at school if they know that, oh, your dad's Justin Baldoni. Oh my gosh, he was so mean to Blake Lively. You're going to take your sides, and look, in the end, I'm sure they both did some wrong. I mean, Lively and Reynolds want him to throw out his defamation lawsuit. He wants them to kind of drop the lawsuit. Everybody kind of wants the lawsuits to drop, and I think they're going to eventually drop. Eventually, I'm going to learn where to look at, because I want to look at the camera that I think is in the middle of my monitor, but then there's the one that's kind of up there that I should be looking at. So if my eyes are wandering, just understand that I'm getting better at this with the more coffee that I drink. You are watching and listening to the Film Buffet podcast. This is going to be on YouTube at Bubba's Buffet. There's multiple ways to find this. I will hunt you down like a Blade Runner for your ears and eyes for my commentary. And also, it's going to be at Buff's Buffet, which is on the Substack blog. I got an episode where I covered Demi Moore and The Substance and her Golden Globes win. And now we're covering the Justin Baldoni versus it. Every time I say his name, I just want to say Baldoni Balboa, because I'm staging this title of this podcast as like Baldoni against Lively, like it's a Madison Square Garden matchup. But at the end of the day, there's going to be fault on both sides. I think he crossed the line probably in the production, said a lot of things about her body, and also kind of used a lot, because you can't even raise your voice and say very bad things. It's not even about physical abuse. I don't think this ever got to be where he hit her, because by now, Deadpool and Wolverine would have already taken Justin out, whatever country he was hiding in, let's just be honest. But I think it was more about what he said. And, she was a star producer. He was a director and also a star and maybe a producer as well. They all had skin in the game. And he kind of ran up against the Blake Lively clout machine. And, she wanted to change things, which is very well reported and kind of confirmed that she wanted to make some changes. And, people, she picks up a novel and she's going to adapt it into a movie. She's going to make some changes. It's like anybody telling any movie, a story essentially about a real thing or a real person. They're going to make a few changes to it. They're going to have their own fun with it. They're not going to be like, well, I'll just do it the way they want. Everybody else wants me to do it. No, they're going to, she's going to do it. And by the end of the thing, when the movie was coming out, he just looked exhausted. Like, even in interviews, he was kind of thinking, well, maybe Blake Lively should direct the next one. He said that if they do another movie. But I think what it does is it drags away a lot of attention from the movie. And I think that's also played into the negative reviews. I think people were just so fed up with it. If it didn't blow them away, they were going to give it an average or a bad or a mediocre review. And it takes away from the fact that she's a very good actress. If she is just kind of making a bunch of noise out of a few very public arguments on a set, and, the guy, that's a voice chat. The guy did sound like he was very sorry. So we'll never really know what he said exactly. We can tell because we've seen video of the rooftop scene, but you can't really hear what they're saying. It seems to be that they were having a good time, but they're on a set with a bunch of people, and it's very public, and this is going to be on camera. It's going to, possibly be shown to millions upon millions of people around the world. So, they're both going to lose some credibility in the end the longer this drags out. Somebody's going to have to give. One of the lawsuits is going to have to come down, and they're going to have to come to some kind of agreement and hopefully never have to see each other again. And everybody can just get back to appreciating Blake Lively's work. I just watched her in The Town way back 2009, 2010 when she was just an actress. And she wowed Ben Affleck to the point of when she auditioned for the role, and she did, she read for the role of his girlfriend. In the movie, she has a kid with Ben Affleck's character and kind of is around him as he forms a new relationship with Rebecca Hall's character. So she's kind of like this thorn in his side, and she gets to play like almost an antagonistical role. And she has a great scene with John Hamm in the movie as well. But she auditioned and had this great Boston Southie accent, and it made Ben Affleck think, man, she must be from Boston. And he asked her, and she's like, no, I think she's from L.A. Without looking it up. And she's like, no, she nailed the accent so well. And she's been in a lot of stuff where, she's a fine actress and she's a movie star. She could do both things, kind of like her husband. It's not like nobody's going to burn down the best actor and build a mold of Ryan Reynolds as far as being a great actor, but he can hold his own in certain roles that require a little depth or a little something different. He's also just kind of a good movie star. He can do the comedy. She can open up movies herself. And, and this movie made money. And so whatever she does next, she's going to kind of bring this with her. But you don't want to bring the defamations and the lawsuits. You want to have that stuff just be finished. You don't want to drag it on to where every time somebody discusses you, oh, well, we're talking about the defamation. Oh, man, how's that going? Like with Brad Pitt and Angelina Jolie, they just finally tied up their divorce. It feels like it's been a 10 to 15 year boxing match. The kids are dropping pit from their names. I mean, it's just like they're picking sides. Apparently, the guy may have been kind of a dickhead and an abusive guy. That's a guy who probably maybe really abused Jolie and the kids, and kind of requires you once again to do the Mel Gibson thing and block it out. The amount of blocking out that we have to do when we watch them is about the amount of blocking out that actors have to do from the real lives when they're acting. And so in the end, you hope they can just get back and Baldoni can do his own thing and go on and hopefully treat his next co-star with more grace than he treated like Blake Lively. And you hope Blake Lively doesn't really, if they are true, that she hopefully doesn't muscle any more co-stars who don't have as much clout and don't have a very popular boyfriend. Because once again, husband, his timing was not working against Baldoni last year when this movie came out. He was already having, Deadpool and Wolverine came out earlier, and it came out in the summer. I think It Ends With Us came out after. And so it was kind of just a Reynolds and Lively show for the whole summer. The previous summer had Barbie and Oppenheimer, and this one kind of had Deadpool and Wolverine, and It Ends With Us. And it didn't end with us. It didn't end with the release of the movie and the aftermath. And a year later, it's probably not going to end, but you hope it does so they can get back to just their careers. And we can get back to hopefully having Baldoni and impress us enough to where we're going to separate him from this scandal. Because other than that, I don't even know he existed before that. I knew about her, and hopefully she can get back to having more challenging projects. But it just kind of gets to be a little messy when we talk more about what the actors are doing off the set than what they're doing in front of the camera. But enough about that stupid drama. My gosh. All these people having so much drama in their lives. What's not drama is that Den of Thieves 3 is a go. What Christian Gugas told me in an interview a couple weeks ago is now being confirmed by Lionsgate. And why would you not make more of those movies? They're financially feasible. I think Den of Thieves 2 only cost $40 to $50 million to make, and they made half of that back in the opening weekend. So why not? If you didn't like the second one, too bad. You're getting a third one. Few people are going to complain about more Gerard Butler with a beard venturing around Europe with, O'Shea Jackson Jr. doing some kind of nefarious activity. As long as the next one has a little more action and a little less, procrastination, maybe more people will watch it, but it makes money and it'll do a lot on streaming. People will eat this up when it gets to Amazon Prime for $20 or $15. So excited about that. Not excited about the new Will Ferrell movie, but we got into that. There's no need to discuss that more. Okay. Watch Walk the Line and watch Anchorman. And, as always, follow me on the blog, Buff's Buffet. Follow me on here. There's 2 ways to find this podcast. It's on YouTube, Buff's Buffet, or it's on the Buff's Buffet Substack blog. Until then, have a good day and watch something good. If you don't have to watch something new. Don't think just because it has the wrapping on it that it's going to be a better movie than what you have on your shelf. Never be afraid to rewatch a classic, and never be afraid to have another cup of coffee. That's what I'm going to do. Have a good day. Good day, folks. Bam.